Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got a special guest. Her name is Jenny Schmal. Did I pronounce that right, Jenny, your surname?
Absolutely.
And Jenny is from South Africa. Whereabouts in South Africa are you from, Jenny?
I'm in the City of Gold in South Africa, Johannesburg, South Africa. And Johannesburg, South Africa is one of the world's largest man-made forests. And it's a very buzzy city. It's the finance hub of South Africa. And beautiful, lovely place to live.
Sounds it. And I've actually been to South Africa a few times, so I know what you're talking about. So yes, I can recommend highly anybody that's interested in visiting South Africa that's never been, definitely. It's massively worth the visit. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about finally finding the love of your life. So before we get stuck into that, Jenny, can you just tell the listeners a little bit about your background and history and what's led you to be doing what you're doing today?
Sure. I'd love to do that. Well, as I said, live in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm a relationship coach, an author of my book, Regenerate, the 8 Steps to Joy. And I run a program called Finding the Love of Your Life. Now, I've been a coach for about 10 years. It's a long story, so perhaps we can have another podcast soon about that. But for today, I work with people who want to find out who they are, what they're doing on this planet, and how they go back on the journey to self-love. Because a lot of people have lost themselves. They've lost the will to live. They've lost the will to be in a relationship. And they always seem to be searching for that special someone that's going to come and change their lives. So most of my coaching is working with people who've either been rejected or are divorced or who perceive that the trauma in their lives doesn't allow them to even know what self-love means. And that's what I focus on. And at the age of 68, I wrote a book which covers that. And I'm now 71 and I coach daily, and I just love meeting and engaging with people and being supportive and inspirational as possible.
Wow, that's excellent, Jenny. Well, you've obviously got some very good history and powerful words of wisdom to share. So when, like you said, we talk about self-love, sometimes people don't actually realise what that means and what we're actually talking about. So can you share with the listeners what specifically you mean by self-love?
Well, the premise of self-love is that you row your own boat. You are the operant power in your life. External circumstances don't run your life. You desire to be with people and with society, but you know that your life is your own story and that you're the director, the scriptwriter, and the actor in that story. And when you recognize that it's not that you don't need anybody, but that you can operate from, I'm okay, I'm enough, and I know who I am, and I love me first. And that's very difficult because, speaking from a woman's point of view, we usually love family first and then ourselves. So it's finding that out for themselves, who they really are. So if I could put it in a nutshell, my journey to self-love was to find harmony and joy in my life. And if I don't bring that daily, in my interactions with people, some joyous remark or some sharing of joy or harmony, I'm totally not okay with myself. And then I know I'm not in alignment with my love of self. And if I was to put it a little harshly, but you can get this, if there's a rowing boat and you really love yourself, you'll get in and row. and then you'll row to shore and then see if you can help the others that might be lagging behind. It's a little bit tough. It sounds tough, but actually, once you get to that point of knowing that your story is just a story and your story changes in every moment. So the past, we usually our stories in the past or stories in the future of what we want. We can just focus in the moment and just see where we are in any given time. We'll be able to work to our recognition of who we are and the self-love that we are. Because love is the highest energy on the planet, the highest vibration of energy, and we are all love. And yet we are looking externally all the time to find love or to feel love or to be validated. So self-love is self-validation.
Yeah, most certainly. It's not about looking for it externally, like you said. I absolutely agree. It is around looking internally, looking at yourself in the mirror and validating, who that wonderful, amazing woman is.
So true. And if we could, if I gave one tip today to anybody, a man or woman, I would say when you get up in the morning, and the first thing we really all go and do the same thing, we go to the bathroom. And I might be simplifying it, but have a look in the mirror and say, I love you to that face that sometimes we don't even recognize. We say, oh my, who's that? But say, I love you to that face because you're alive. It's your aliveness that you are expressing at that moment. It's, I love you. Because when we really say, I love you to somebody, we're not talking about them. It sounds like English language, like I'm saying I love them, but I actually love me. And yet we find it difficult to look in the mirror and say, I love you.
Yeah, don't we just? And also, I think we can be quite harsh, on ourselves in our self-talk without even realizing it. Because I quite often see women looking in the mirror and instead of, embracing the love that they see, they're saying things like, oh my God, look at all my wrinkles, look at the bags under my eyes. Oh, I've got another zit on my face.
Yes.
and things like that, whereas I've now learned to look in the mirror and say, wow, I'm still managing to reverse the aging process and I'm looking great.
I think that what you just said there is absolutely beautiful. And I think when you've connected with your own self-love, the love of you, it's just what you expressed in those words. Because for me, I don't see an aging process. I don't see that in people. When I look at them, I see love. I see joy. I see beauty. I'm looking, at you. I see beauty and vibrancy, not those other things. And I suppose that's part of it. And I see I'm alive. I see aliveness. And why shouldn't I love that?
Absolutely. And embrace, none of us are perfect. So it's looking at ourselves and knowing that we're not perfect, but loving the imperfection nevertheless, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, I wear spectacles. So a lot of people say to me, why don't you get contacts or, something like that? And at night or in the morning, I don't have spectacles. I'm looking at me. The spectacles are just what I do so I can read. So I love the woman with the spectacles. I love the woman without the spectacles.
Yeah, and I often think these days especially when I see very young girls, naturally beautiful souls that they are, in embracing, this phase, I can only call it, of Botox and, cosmetic surgery. And I feel quite concerned about that. I don't know what your views are, Jenny.
Quite frankly, I always said to my daughter, who's 48 and a beautiful girl, maybe when I'm 90. And she said, but why would you say that? And I've realized why, because I'm never going to. Because I think I don't think it's necessary. And I also believe that if they really loved themselves, maybe they wouldn't. And I'm sure some of these listeners are not going to like that sentence, but especially for a young girl, they're beautiful. They're all beautiful, but if they could find themselves, they wouldn't be doing these things. They're doing it to get validation from their peers, from their group, from their tribe, or from society. And
yes,
quite frankly, it's sad.
It is, because you can see that they have got that natural beauty underneath that. I'm not suggesting that women shouldn't make an effort, when it comes to, if they feel more attractive with makeup on and what have you, but to go to some of these extremes where they're really drastically altering how they look through these procedures, it really worries me, and it seems to be happening to younger and younger generations, doesn't it?
Yes, I think we have the internet to thank for that one. Because in my day, you had one magazine a month and you saw something in there and you might have thought, well, I might like to look like that or change my lipstick. And today it's just daily bombardment of societal norms that are expected of young women or beautiful women and older beautiful women as well. Mm. And so everyone has their choice. My choice is not to. I choose to be myself.
Yeah. And, I wish that we could get that message across. I would wish there were social influencers on the internet that were prepared to just be a natural face and a natural body, and that others were massively influenced by being them natural selves rather than this plastic imitation of who you think society expects you to be.
And I suppose if we followed the money, we'd find out why. And, it's all about money. That's how the world goes round. It sells cosmetics, it sells beauty, it's a huge machine. And then you have someone coaching you to be who you are, and look at your inner beauty and the beauty of your aliveness and vibrancy. And people say, but I don't know if I want to pay for that. I might just go and have some Botox.
Well, like I say, I think, we've all been influenced, different generations have been influenced. I mean, even just, I suppose, just when I was younger, having my ears pierced was considered, quite the thing, and my mum and dad didn't like it because that was radical in those days.
Those were the days, and they aren't here anymore.
Yeah, and very few women in those days had tattoos or anything like that, or there wasn't any sort of cosmetic surgery around that was highly affordable anyway or prevalent. There was just literally little enhancements, such as, like you said, a bit of lipstick or a bit of foundation or something, that to enhance your naturally great features.
True that.
So when you have somebody come to you then, Jenny, that you can tell struggles with, the concept of self-love and probably even, just looking in a mirror and actually saying those words wouldn't feel comfortable to them, what would you say to sort of help them get over that?
Well, I have a little exercise, and I would ask them, I would, to show them so they could really see what was happening here. I think it's Tibetan, or it comes from there. If you can bow to somebody, it's very easy. I meet you, and if it was my culture, I would bow to you. I find that very easy. But can I bow to myself? When you're standing in front of a mirror and I ask you to bow to yourself in the mirror, it's quite amazing what happens. They can bow a little bit. They just can't seem to bow to this mirror image of themselves. Mm. And then we get talking about why does that happen? And it's because they don't really know that person in the mirror. And actually it's psychological, and also it's in the cells of your body. If you have any self-limiting beliefs in that area of your life, you won't be able to bow to yourself.
So can you give us an example of, typical common self-limiting beliefs? Because some audience members won't necessarily understand what you mean by that.
Okay. So a self-limiting belief could be, I'm always rejected by men.
Yeah.
Or I think that's the biggest one. So, that's one that I get often. Whoever, they reject me. They don't think I'm good enough. And that is a self-limiting belief. And when I say, let's unpack that a little bit, what is it that makes you think that they're rejecting you? oh, well, he left me for somebody, or he did X, or he did Y. And they're speaking about another person. So my coaching process is to get them to speak about themselves. So it's like an unpacking of, okay, so how does that make you feel, that you feel rejected? They'll say sad. Well, how does that make you feel? And we unpack that. And usually 10 steps later, they'll get to the fact, well, when that happens, I get up, dust myself off, and I'm me again. So there's a whole process there. And so it's their perceived rejection. And really what it is rejection of self.
Yeah. Sorry. And where in their lives are they doing that? Because like you say, it's usually a reflection of something they're doing to themselves. If they're experiencing that externally, via their partner, society, friends, family, whatever, usually it's a reflection of something they're also doing to themselves internally, isn't it?
It is that. And also it's a trigger. So they maybe have maybe their school teacher rejected them when they wrote an essay, and they might be having a conversation with a new partner in life, or they just got married and it's a new marriage, or just with girls, just their friends. And then somebody in this conversation would say something, and that trigger shows up and they feel rejected. Somebody might say, why are you wearing that dress? It just doesn't suit you, or anything like that. So they feel rejected in a social circle. Or their husband says, oh, that was a beautiful dinner that Mary made. Well, what's wrong with the dinner I cook? They feel rejected. But really it's rejection of self, because they don't, they have confidence, but they don't have self-esteem. Yes. And it's usually sitting there in the self-esteem, where the self-limiting beliefs. And we can say to them, they're beautiful, or you're just too gorgeous, but they don't see it. So, relationship coaching and alignment facilitation is what I do. And it's a process. It's very difficult to say it in this, in this conversation, but it's a process to allow them to see through a series of skill set questioning, and them finding for themselves the answers, that they might suddenly just say, I see it now. Well, I am beautiful, but I always knew I was beautiful. And then get them to that part.
I love the fact that you come up with the distinction between, somebody may have confidence, but they don't necessarily have self-esteem. In other words, they're not necessarily treating themselves well, and they may not even realize that they're not treating themselves well, and they're not valuing their self-worth and, who they really are.
And that is so true. And I've experienced that, so I would be able to speak on that. I was very confident, but had low self-esteem till much later in life, and I had to work through that. But the people with low self-esteem also seem to be, and I'm generalizing, perfectionists. I have to be the prettiest. I have to be the best. I have to be the most beautiful. I have to be the best mother, the best lover, the best wife, the best friend. And so there's that pressure on themselves all the time to do so well and be the best, that they don't look at themselves anymore. They're looking out, not inward.
Yes.
And looking for that validation from the other, whoever the other is. and that's why self-esteem is, I think it's, besides anxiousness, one of the biggest problems on the planet.
Yes, I absolutely can relate to that, both from a personal perspective in my youth, and certainly, from having clients that absolutely have got that low self-esteem, and they are really massively, not realizing that they're judging themselves really, really harshly, and not valuing, what they're bringing to a relationship and who they really are underneath all of that.
And with the clients that I work with, and only this year I've started off, it's been a month of men. Usually my clients are women, and from all cultures, and nationally and internationally. A funny thing happened. I had a client who I think is absolutely, she's a together lady. Her business is good. She's got a great body. She's financially independent. She's, reasonably good looking, although she doesn't see it. And everything in her life is fantastic. But she's not with a partner. And she's 3 marriages later, no partner, 89 dates this year, and none of them are suitable. And we're working on what is it about her that finds them not suitable. She doesn't even give them a chance because she negates herself. And it's looking at that, and that is a huge thing of lack of self-esteem, but confidence in business, confidence with her body. She can't see it. And slowly we are peeling the onion, as they say, and eventually she will allow herself to embrace who she really is. And I've said, perhaps you'll go back to 4 of those 89 dates. And you will look at them differently because you will be different.
Yeah, that's.
And yes, my wake up call was for myself when I was about 45. I always thought I was too fat. I was the bigger girl at school, tall, bigger, lanky, awkward, and I always thought I was too fat. And at 45, I had a trauma in my life. I got divorced, huge trauma. And through that trauma, without going into much detail, I suddenly got rid of I am fat. It sort of disappeared. It wasn't even in my cells, in my body, in my psyche. It had disappeared. And I lost 14 kilos in a matter of 6 months. Not doing anything, just not focusing on I was fat because I was so devastated, dealing with the process of a divorce. So sometimes these rejected parts of ourselves that we so reject, and we do, disappear by themselves sometimes because another trauma is brought in.
Yeah, definitely. I understand what you're saying, and I feel a lot of the audience members will understand what you're saying, where you have a huge event or a life-changing situation occur that literally changes your focus and shifts everything for positive or negative.
Absolutely. And it's those huge so you either get a life coach, or you go to a counselor, or you go to a psychologist, or you deal with your pain in the way that you usually want to, or that is comfortable for you. Or it seems that an event happens in your life and just clears it immediately, and that part doesn't exist anymore. And I suppose coaching has part of that in it. Where you get to a part in the process. And I don't coach anybody for more than 8 sessions, because I believe if you haven't honed in on a laser part of what exactly is going on there, both parties, not just me, we're looking at maybe needing something more than what I do. So I'm more a laser focused coach.
Yes.
And let's get on with it. We're not going into your past. I'm not going into your future. I'm interested in where are you now? What is the outcome you would like? What are we dealing with? And let's deal with that. And then we can move on to whatever, the next subject is.
Yes. So when you're coaching somebody who is massively finding it a challenge to experience or accept or identify with what self-love means, what do you think is the first aha moment they get, that on the back of something you may have given them to do as an exercise?
Well, the first exercise, probably on the first day, at the first meeting, is I have this little exercise. So maybe you can listen and you can answer as well if you want to. But imagine that you are outside of the planet. So you can say you're an alien, or you just haven't been to this planet yet. And you're looking at this planet, you can see what's happening here, what people are dealing with emotionally, physically, psychologically, familiarly, whatever it is. And then I'm going to ask you, if you were going to that planet and I'm only allowing you one word, what would you take there? because it be something that you perceive they don't have.
What's the most common thing that comes up? Is there a common theme there?
Did anything come up for you?
Yeah, love. It was love.
Exactly. And that's the most common. And they look at me and I say, well, is that what you bring in? Is that what you do in your daily life? Is that what you bring into yourself? And they start crying, or they say, no, but I didn't see that. And the thing is, when I ask that question, the brain doesn't know that answer. They're answering from their heart. There's no ego involved there. So they might say, for me, it's joy. It would be peace, joy, happiness, love, and some very beautiful other ones. But because I ask it in that way, they're able to answer. They all answer. Nobody's ever said, I don't know. And it's immediate, and it's not an answer from headspace. They've moved to their heart. And then the conversation is open because it's softened. And then I would say, do you know where you answered from? They all know. They said, like, my head was blank. And then the answer just arrived. So that's a good way to start any conversation of self-love.
Massively.
Yes, there's a Jewish saying. It's not perfect what I'm going to say, but the Jewish people believe that when you're pregnant, that baby knows everything that's ever needed to know in their lifetime. So they know everything. And then just before they're born, the angel comes along and she taps them on the nose. There's a name for it. I don't quite have it with me at the moment. And all that knowledge is erased. And we start again. So we're born and we go through the experience of life, gaining the knowledge that we already knew before we arrived. And so your answer of love would, sort of just cement that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do understand and get that, because I do firmly believe, that all we need is within us already. It's just like you say, we've forgotten it probably, or don't know how to access it, because we've not been educated or parented as to how we can access what we already know is already there.
Absolutely. And so in my coaching, which was bespoke, because I couldn't coach each person, is totally different. But we would start with that. And from the word that they wanted to bring, we would then go to, where do you bring this to yourself? And that would be the next sort of set of questions. So if somebody said hope, well, where do you bring that for yourself? Or determination, where does that sit in your life? And I think that's the way, well, for myself, I sort of get them to unpack a little bit of themselves before we go into other kind of processes. So I suppose for me, I'm intuitive. And once I've sort of, it's a heart-to-heart, that little conversation, I can gauge from that where possibly we could be going. And I've never had anybody who didn't enjoy that conversation. And it's amazing how many people want to bring love to the planet.
Yeah. But it is, like you say, it's already here. It's already within us. We've not just been made aware of how we can actually access that for ourselves without...
In our first few minutes, you asked me, how would I get them to see what self-love is for them? That's one of the ways. Because that wasn't something from outside. They were bringing it. And then I say to them, that's what you are. And Lyn, like you said, love. I have no doubt in my mind that that's what you are. That's the energy you bring in everything that you do. And yes, sometimes I don't say we go up and down. I say we go side to side, and it might vary a little. But fundamentally, I have no doubt that, that's what you bring. I have no doubt that I bring joy. Not to everybody, definitely to myself. And it's something I try and express, and it's how I express myself in my message and contribution and service to people that I want to engage with, or who might want to engage with me.
Yeah, and I think all we can do, is do our best to be our best version of ourselves. That Do we make mistakes along the way? Of course we do. But, the secret is not to beat yourself up about that. We're human after all. And, we're not alone in our mistakes, are we? We can all empathize with that.
Yes, and I love taking that word mistakes and then just putting a hyphen between the S and the T, like mistakes, like in a movie.
Yes.
Cut, next,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
We need to reshoot that bit of the script again because, I've learned a lesson from that previous take.
Yes, and I have this philosophy that our life is a video. The video is already there. And at certain parts, you're just pressing pause. Other parts, you're pressing rewind. Other parts, you're pressing fast forward. It all depends where you are and what you're working with for yourself at any given time.
Well, massively, I've took a lot from this conversation, Jenny, as I'm sure our audience members have too. So thank you very much for sharing your great words of wisdom. If any audience members would like to get in touch with you, Jenny, what would be the best contact information?
I would say visit my website. It's www.regener8.com.
Could you repeat that again for us, please, Jenny?
Yes. www.regener8.com.
Excellent.
Regenerate.com. Yeah.
Regenerate.com. Thank you so much.
That's correct.
And
I'd love to thank you, Lyn, because I've so enjoyed where this conversation went, and it's been an honor to be on this podcast. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. That's lovely. And for any of our audience members listening that would love to get in touch with Jenny, I'll make sure all her contact information is contained as usual in our show notes. But for now, I want to say thank you so much to Jenny Schmal from South Africa for sharing all her wise words of wisdom. And remember, true love starts with opening your hearts. Goodbye for now. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.